Rise of Kingdoms just revealed two brand new legendary archer commanders coming to the game, the first of which being of course Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. We've talked about this gentleman already on the channel. If you missed it, that means you're probably not subscribed to the channel. And the second commander is none other than Shapur the first. So today we're going to go over the skills for each of these commanders. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts and opinions on everything, but first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Now, as you guys know, I am a partnered creator with Rise of Kingdoms, so if you guys want breaking news for Rise of Kingdoms as it's coming out, you want to subscribe and click that bell to be notified. And also, I've been going live over on Twitch and my second channel. I'm gonna link those down below. If you want more Omniarch content, go ahead and check me out over there. Okay, let's start with Emperor Qin Shi Huang. And first of all, let me just apologize again if I am mispronouncing the name here. I'm doing my best. He of course has the archer versatility and skill talent trees. So ladies and gentlemen, we can say conclusively 100% for sure, it seems to be the case that we ain't getting any more true damage. Okay, that's just how I'm feeling. I feel like we already got a combo tree, we already got a smite tree, and we would be definitely getting some sort of true damage tree if that was going to be the future. But let's take a look at the kit here. Active skill 1 conquers 6, 1000 rage requirement. This commander's troop gains the Eternal Emperor effect for 10 seconds whenever their troop deals direct damage with a basic attack via the Iron Pierces Bronze skill. It also deals 60% of the damage to up to 5 enemy troops. Every additional target reduces the damage by 15%. Okay, so right out of the gate, literally a 10-second self buff. Since we already know that this commander has the skill tree, if this commander is primary, you're going to be able to have this buff up all the time, because typically you're casting your active skill more frequently than once in every 10 seconds. So as long as you're staying in battle, you should constantly have this skill up, and it looks like it literally is just a modifier for another skill here, Iron Pierces Bronze. So we have to see, what does Iron Pierces Bronze do? Okay, the second skill is Iron Pierces Bronze. It says whenever this commander's troop launches a basic attack, it spends 100 rage. It will not trigger without sufficient rage to convert the damage into direct damage. The direct damage is equal to 100% of the troop's basic attack damage factor. This commander's archer units gain 20% march speed and 30% defense. If their troop contains only archer units, they also gain 20% health. Okay, so the second half of that is very easy to understand. This is a tanky boy with tons of march speed. That is exactly what archers wanted. But let's try to understand the beginning part of that skill. Whenever you launch a basic attack, you spend 100 rage to convert the damage into direct damage, and the direct damage is equal to 100% of their troops basic attack damage factor. Okay, that seems like a lot of words to simply say that every single basic attack that you deal, you spend 100 rage, deal 200 damage factor, right? Because, and forgive me because it's 5 in the morning right now, but I'm pretty sure your basic attack damage is typically 200 damage factor. Okay, so every turn you deal 200 damage factor for 100 rage, but only if you have enough rage to do that. That's interesting. And then as long as you've already casted this active skill, it says whenever you deal damage with that skill, you deal 60% more of that damage to up to 5 nearby targets. So as long as this is up, it effectively turns this second skill into a 5 target AoE every single time that it goes off. So it's just, so let's just say that you're gonna cast this every other turn, even though I think it'll be most turns you'll probably cast this, but let's just assume it's every other turn just to wrap our heads around this. Okay, so every other turn you're spending 100 rage, dealing 200 damage factor, and then also dealing 60% of that damage to 5 targets. Okay, interesting. Taking a look at the third skill, all we have is the expertise version here. It says if this commander's troop is in the field and has been outside of your city for at least 10 seconds, it gains the Eternal Emperor effect for 10 seconds whenever it enters combat. Okay, so that is the effect that we get from the active skill. Okay, so basically the expertise allows you to start the battle with this and not have to wait for the first active skill cast. I was very worried about that when I first read that, honestly, so I'm glad to see it. Can trigger once every 60 seconds. I have no idea what that 60-second cooldown is. I don't know what's going on there. Whenever the troop deals direct damage with Iron Pierces Bronze or the Eternal Emperor effect, it spends 25 rage to deal extra direct damage to all targets and drain 15% rage from them with a damage factor of 250 waning. Now let's see if they say what waning actually is in this video. Obviously we know drain is that the enemy loses 15 rage, you gain 15 rage, and waning says after triggering 2 times in a single second, every subsequent trigger that second deals 25% less damage than the last, down to a minimum of 25%. Okay, so you can trigger it a ton of times, but you just have to get more and more lucky as it goes on. Okay, the fourth skill, if this commander's troop is attacking a field troop, if they are the primary commander, their troop gains 500 rage upon entering combat. Okay, that is what I was wondering, because it seems like based on the Emperor's skill that you get from the active and that you start with in battle, it seems like you're going to be spending a lot of rage every turn or every other turn with this commander, so you would definitely want to start with rage. So okay, that makes a little bit more sense. So if you're the primary, you start the battle with 500 rage, their troop takes 10% less normal damage. Okay, that's great in today's meta. Whenever their troop takes skill damage, smite damage, or combo damage with over 300 damage factor, it spends 40 rage to reduce the damage by 40%, can trigger a total of 6 times per second. Each enemy troop can only trigger the effect once per second. Okay, interesting. Wow, this is a crazy commander. This is a crazy commander. Is there anything we don't know on that expertise there? So I guess the no expertise is what the third skill would be without it. So it's a shorter start time and less rage drain. Wow, okay, but it also is less rage spent as well on the third skill without the expertise. I'm gonna be real, you guys, I feel like you need a PhD in rockology to understand this commander. This is easily the most complicated commander that I have ever seen. This reminds me of when they first revealed Shajar and they first revealed Choi Young, except this just, not only do we have to understand how we're dealing damage, but how often that's going to occur and how much rage are you spending to do this. Here's what I'm wondering though, like what is the function of this commander? Like why do they want us to spend rage constantly? Is this commander like, are his skills going to trigger before the rage cap? That's what I want to know. I feel like if we have the answer to that, then we can understand better how powerful this commander is going to be, right? Because as you guys know, there is a cap to the amount of rage that you can gain every turn in Rise of Kingdoms. And historically what would happen is your talents and your skills and everything would generate all this rage, right? And then the game would chop it off and say, okay, you've hit the rage cap, and then they would implement any rage reductions that you've gotten from the enemies or on the battlefield, right? What I'm wondering is that, you know, this commander looks extremely rage intensive. It seems like this commander is going to be spending your rage effectively as soon as you're getting it, right? Like you're going to be spending, I mean, whenever you launch a basic attack, you spend 100 rage, and then the expertise says whenever you deal damage with that second skill, you spend another 25 rage to deal more damage, but also drain rage from the enemy. But you also start the battle with 500 rage, which is kind of like your buffer to just like get the whole engine running basically. I wonder if he's just going to be really good for super short fights, but he's also spending rage to reduce the damage that he's taking. It makes me wonder if the secret to making him useful, or the secret that makes him powerful, is that maybe he's able to spend that extra rage that typically would get, like maybe he spends all his rage, then the rage cap is implemented, then the enemy's rage reductions occur. Like maybe he is like the one exception to everything in the game that allows you to access all the bonus rage that you've been generating that historically you've been unable to use. I'm just guessing, I have no idea, right? But otherwise he seems like he is spending a ridiculous amount of rage. One thing is for certain, right? The active skill doesn't have a big 5 target circular AoE nuke that we were expecting as a community, right? And it seems like he is specializing in dealing a tremendous amount of tiny damage every single turn, right? It's going to be just a bunch of small damage all the time, rather than big damage every 8 seconds like most other archer commanders. So I'm wondering who's going to be the best pair for this commander when he wants to be primary and doesn't seem like he necessarily has synergy with anybody other than maybe other commanders that deal additional damage. Let's take a look at the other commander, Shapur the First, who is the archer, conquering, and skill commander, and then maybe we will understand how Emperor Qin is supposed to be working. Okay, so of course the archer, conquering, and skill commander is most likely going to be the mightiest governor event. So let's take a look at the skills here. The active skill, 1000 rage requirement, deals additional damage to a target troop every second for 4 seconds with a damage factor of 800. If the target has less than 500 rage, it also cannot receive shield effects for the next 2 seconds. So this is a 3200 damage factor, and it is additional damage. So I'm pretty sure Chiskel was the first person to basically predict that additional damage was going to be the future of archers. I'm sure others have predicted it, right? But like, he made a whole video about it, so that's the easiest to remember. But very interesting stuff here, also very vanilla. Let's take a look at the second skill. This commander's archer units gain 20% march speed and 20% health. Very cool. You do not need to be in a rally, you do not need to be hitting an enemy garrison. It is just all the time you gain march speed and health. That is fantastic news. Whenever their troop takes damage, it has a 25% chance to gain 30% attack for 3 seconds. That's also available on the map in open field combat whenever. If they're leading a rally attack, they gain an extra 20% march speed. Wow, this is going to be ripping across the battlefield. Okay, really nice stuff. So far, the first 2 skills are exactly what I was hoping for, and that is a rallying commander that can be used as a field commander as usual. Great stuff here. Third skill, whenever this commander's troop deals skill damage, it has a 20% chance to inflict the following effect for 3 seconds. The target cannot receive temporary health buffs, and the target deals 20% less normal damage. Wow, dude, that's really good. Okay, so this is fantastic if you're pairing him with a commander that deals AoE skill damage, right? Because if you're dealing 5 target circular AoE skill damage, for example with Zhuge Liang, you have a 25% chance to inflict a normal damage reduction to all of those targets. That's wild. Okay, that is really good. Fourth skill, if this commander is leading a rally attack, whenever their rallied army grants a buff, it has a 50% chance to gain 100 rage and gain a 30% bonus to skill damage dealt for 3 seconds with a 4-second cooldown. Okay, so this is right away, you could technically run this commander at 5551 in the open field and not have to worry about skill resets, not have to worry about any of that. This is effectively the same as what we loved about Saladin back in the day, is that his rally skill was on the last skill, and that's the last one you get access to, and so you can max everything before that. Really love that for us as a community, and we love that for open field archers. And then the expertise says if this commander is leading a rally attack, whenever the rallied army deals damage, it has a 15% chance to deal additional damage every second for 1 second to 5 troops near the target troop of a damage factor of 200 with a 1-second cooldown. If they aren't leading a rally attack, whenever their troop deals additional damage, it has a 15% chance to deal additional damage every second for 2 seconds to all targets with a damage factor of 200. Now again, it's 5 in the morning, so I forget, but is Phoenix Tail arrows in the archer tree? Is this technically additional damage? I don't remember exactly, but if that's the case, then archers literally have a way to take advantage of this built into their talents, which is crazy. Okay, so Shapur, I do not know how he's going to work with the rally meta. I suspect that he will be strong. I mean, right now we're talking about pairing with Ashurbanipal most likely, because Ashurbanipal is the current latest greatest commander for archer rallies. This gives Ashurbanipal 20% health chances at attack. It seems like once you connect with this pair, it's going to be devastating. But man, I'm going to give it to the developers. I cannot give you an accurate first impressions of Emperor Qin. Here's what I can say. This is not what the community was expecting. I don't know how this is going to work with other commanders that we already have. How strong is this going to be with what's already in the game? Because it is basically the complete opposite of how we've been playing archers, right? The way that and really how we've been playing everything in the game, how we've been playing the game for the past 6+ years, is that you want to gain as much rage as possible, and then you spend it all as fast as possible to deal big damage, right? What he's doing is spending rage as fast as possible to deal small amounts of damage all the time, just constantly dealing damage, right? And I think that because of that, it's really hard, without being able to actually test this commander, it's really hard to know how often you're going to be dealing this damage, and like how slow does this make your rage cycle, right? If he's the primary and he starts with 500 rage, which is great, but then he's spending rage every single turn. I mean, the second skill literally is as soon as you go into battle, your first basic attack, you're going to go from 500 to 400 rage immediately, right? And then you're going to generate rage from that basic attack, but you're also going to deal damage with this skill, proc the Eternal Emperor buff, which you're going to start the battle with even though you haven't already casted this yet. And if he's expertise, he's going to spend another 25 rage to drain 15 rage. So on your very first turn, you've already spent at least 110 rage, and if you get hit with skill smite or combo damage, you spend another 40 rage. So man, there's got to be a secret sauce to this commander to really unlock his potential. And again, it just seems like he's spending, like, it's possible to spend so much rage on a given turn with this commander that I almost feel like he has to operate outside the boundaries of the rage cap, and then after all of his stuff is done calculating, then you implement the rage cap. That is like the only way that I can really think about this commander not only being good but also being able to be net rage positive enough to eventually cast your active skill, right? Like if you're spending 110 or 150 rage per turn, like 220 rage is the cap per turn. So if we're already spending 100 or 110 rage, or we're netting 110 rage loss per turn, you've cut your rage generation in half as a result of using this commander. Now you're starting with extra rage, but you're going to eat into that pretty quickly, and then once you cast your active skill, then your rage engine sort of picks up a little bit because he does have the skill tree, which means he has rejuvenate, he has feral nature. You're probably going to use him with a horn. You're also probably going to use him with drums, to be honest with you guys, because of how much rage you're going to need for this dude. So yeah, I have no idea how his constant spending of rage is going to affect how quickly you can trigger these skills. Kind of insane stuff here. Let's actually go through this one more time. I know this is ridiculous, but this is a lot to understand. Okay, so you put him out in the field, he's the primary commander, he starts with 500 rage, you connect with a target. Okay, the second that you connect with that target, assuming he's expertise, he's going to start with the Eternal Emperor effect. Okay, so as soon as you enter combat, as soon as your first basic attack hits that first enemy, you start with 500 rage, you connect with a basic attack. Okay, now since you already have the Eternal Emperor effect, that first ever basic attack will spend 100 of your rage. You're going to deal direct damage equal to your basic attack damage factor, which is typically 200 damage factor. Okay, so the very first turn you're going to deal your basic attack, you're also going to deal 200 damage factor, and then because you've started the battle with the Eternal Emperor effect, whenever you deal that direct damage, you're going to deal another 60% of that damage to 5 nearby enemy targets, right? So that first ever basic attack is not only going to be a basic attack to the target, an instant proc at a 100 rage spend, and then it's going to be whatever 60% of that is to 5 targets. So your very first hit is a small 5 target AoE, right? And then again, on top of that, if he's expertise, you're going to spend another 25 rage to deal another 250 damage factor to all the targets hit and drain all of those targets for 15 rage. Okay, so here's I just figured it out. Here is how we're going to be rage positive with this commander. Okay, because you're going to be hitting 5 targets with the active skill, you're going to spend 25 rage, but if you hit 5 targets, you're going to generate 15 rage for every target that you hit. Okay, so that means you could potentially generate 75 rage, right? So you spend 25, generate 75, you gain 50 rage, right? Assuming you're hitting it at all 5 targets, right? So you have a net rage gain of 50 from this skill, but remember you've already spent 100 on the second skill here, right? So now all of a sudden you're only down 50 rage instead of 100 rage, and you started with 500, so now you're at 450, but you've dealt a basic attack, you've dealt 200 damage factor to 1 target, then you've dealt 60% of that damage to 5 targets, and all 5 of those targets take another 250 damage factor from the expertise, and you gain 15 rage per target. Okay, I think we understand how this commander works now, but he's still spending rage every turn. Now you're still going to be rage positive every turn, most likely, unless you're getting hit with a ton of skill smite or combo damage, in which case you're gonna spend 40 rage to reduce the damage by 40%, and you can trigger this up to 6 times per second, which is insane. So you could possibly, if you are getting swarmed, basically, like if you are getting absolutely demolished here, you're gonna spend a lot of your rage, but you're gonna tank that pretty well. I guess you won't tank the basic attacks very well, but you'll tank the skill damage very well, and the smite and the combo damage, right? So That's pretty good. And he also has 30% defense and 20% health, so he's a tanky boy. He is a super tanky boy who spends rage to be even tankier, right? So okay, I think we understand how this commander works now, right? He's going to be dealing tons of small amounts of AoE skill damage here, which is insane fast, super tanky, and if he's targeted and swarmed like archers already are, he's going to spend even more of his rage to be super tanky in those scenarios, right? Really interesting stuff here. Let's jump in game and see which commanders might be good commander pairs for Emperor Qin. Okay, first of all, I think Zhuge Liang comes to mind strictly because he is also another open field archer skill damage commander, arguably the best archer commander in the game right now. In total, you will have 50% health, 30% defense, and then you gain the 20% march speed, which you really need for Zhuge Liang, which is very, very good. He also gives a skill damage bonus to Emperor Qin, which is nice, and he also has a small amount of rage engine on the expertise. I know a lot of us forget about this because it's so small and it is off on the expertise, but that could come in handy for Emperor Qin because he's going to be very rage intensive. Right now, a lot of archer players are using Philip. I don't know if Philip is going to be the best pair here, strictly because, like, I mean, his active skill is whatever, and then his expertise has a chance to cast your active skills again, but that active skill has a 10-second uptime on Emperor Qin, so you're probably not going to need to cast this at a ton of times. It's always going to be up pretty much. So I don't know, he's giving Emperor Qin a ton of health and march speed, which is always good, but that's not necessarily what he needs. The 30% all damage would be good, of course, that's always good, but I don't know, maybe Philip is the pair, but I'm not super convinced. Poison stacks on Harmon are going to be nice, but again, you can probably pair them together, but I'm not seeing like the synergy, right? I'm not seeing like, oh my god, that's what breaks him, right? Because remember, a lot of the additional bonuses that Emperor Qin gets, it's not from dealing damage, it's not from dealing additional damage, it's from dealing more damage specifically with the Iron Pierce's bronze skill. So it's not like we can find a bunch of other commanders that have instant procs or additional damage or damage over time or whatever to really pump up this damage. It's pretty much limited to just the damage that you're dealing from that skill, right? This says via Iron Pierce's bronze skill. Even the expertise says whenever you deal damage with the Iron Pierce's bronze skill or the Eternal Emperor effect. Well, the Eternal Emperor effect only deals damage when you deal damage from the Iron Pierce's bronze skill. So again, it becomes challenging. There are no other commanders that are going to deal damage with the Iron Pierce's bronze skill, at least from my first understanding of this commander. Yi Seong-Ye is always going to be Yi Seong-Ye. He's got a ton of defense, he's got a ton of AoE damage and skill damage. I feel like what you really want for Emperor Qin is a rage regenerating machine. So Trajan is clearly the best commander pair. I have no idea. I am at a loss here, guys. I'm gonna be honest with you. Zhuge Liang's expertise is the only thing that I can think of that generates a ton of rage for archers. I wonder if the 5 instant procs of the Eternal Emperor skill, or buff I should say, will trigger the healing from Shajar. Can you imagine every turn just healing everybody for 500 mighty healing? That would be insane because you'd constantly get this normal damage bonus here. That could be interesting. We'll definitely have to test that, but Shajar would have to be secondary most likely because Emperor Qin starts with 500 rage. So yeah, and again, we have a ton of health and march speed here, so that would be wild, and it would be mega tanky. This would be a mega tanky march. So much damage taken reduction on both these commanders, defense, health, all that. That could definitely be worth trying. Even if there's not that much synergy, it could just be so tanky and that it lasts for a long time and allows Emperor Qin to deal that like large amount, or small, I should say small amounts of damage for a very long time. Maybe that's the play, I have no idea. But I feel like all the commanders that typically generate a ton of rage aren't archers, so I have no idea what to think about Emperor Qin. I think it's also possible that the best commander pairing for Emperor Qin could just be Shapur himself in the open field, because if you see here, it says whenever this commander's troop deals skill damage, it has a 20% chance to inflict the following effect for 3 seconds. They can't get health buffs and they deal 20% less normal damage. So if we have the active skills buff, the Eternal Emperor buff on Emperor Qin, if that is a constant 5 target AoE, is that skill damage? I suspect it is skill damage because he has the skill tree, and so if you're constantly dealing 5 target AoE, then you constantly have a 20% chance of inflicting this debuff, and there's no cooldown listed here, and so you could just be constantly making everyone on the field deal 20% less normal damage potentially, which I think could be really cool. And him being the secondary, he has, you know, 3200 over time damage to one target, which is interesting. But we have, you know, tons of health here. We have tons of march speed. Maybe you just run Emperor Qin with Shapur, you keep it simple, and then you just keep running Zhuge Liang with Herman or Zhuge Liang with Philip, and that's your two archer marches, right? I'm gonna give you guys my first impressions. I just don't know. I just don't know how good he can be when I can't think of an exact great commander to pair him with. Here's what I do know. Archers are in a tough spot right now. This commander is mega tanky, straight up super tanky, tankiest archer we've ever seen, confirmed, right? So the devs know archers are in a tough spot right now. They're giving us a super tanky archer, and I would be willing to bet that the developers have tested this commander enough to confirm that they are going to be strong in the open field. We just saw infantry get Baichi with the pincer formation, which is super strong. We just saw cavalry get King Arthur with the Delta formation, right? Super strong. So here we're getting archers with the skill tree, not a new formation, and this commander is not really doing exactly what archers have been known to do. It's small amounts of AoE all the time. So, you know, I think because the devs know the position archers are in right now, I suspect that they've tested this and said, yeah, that's pretty good, we're going to release it like that. Of course, as it says here, details are subject to change on the official update, so we don't know, it could change, but I suspect that the developers have really crunched the numbers here and said, wow, this is pushing the boundaries, this could be really, really strong. But without seeing like a clear path forward, I'm not sure on how strong this archer is going to be. No idea. Seems very rage intensive, and again, I think he should have to ignore the rage cap possibly to be super strong. That's my knee-jerk reaction, but we'll have to wait and see with tests in the game. Also, the active skill looks freaking sick, dude. Look at this, ready? Boom! Oh, that is so sick. That gold, what up, Leo? That golden dragon just flies around and then shoots up. Freaking epic. Actually one of the coolest skills I've ever seen. I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below about Emperor Qin and also Shapur. I think Shapur is, again, 5551 seems amazing for the open field. However, he deals damage every second for the next 4 seconds. I'm hoping you don't have to stay connected to the target for this to work, right? Because if you have to stay connected to the target for this to work, then this is going to be not a very good commander in the open field, most likely, because that's just historically been the case. Like, let's just look at Sargon, for example. But otherwise, 20% march speed, 20% health, 25% chance to gain 30% attack for 3 seconds, decent stats on the kit, decent normal damage reduction as a debuff to the target. Could be really good in the field, could be really good. But I want to know what you guys think about these two new commanders. These are two very unorthodox, very unexpected commanders. I don't think that this is what most people predicted for archers, so yeah, and definitely not what most people expected or wanted. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how the community reacts to these two new commanders, because again, I don't think that this is what the community wanted. That's just my guess. You guys can let me know in the comment section below if I'm right about that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the community wanted a big 5 target AoE skill damage for both of these commanders. We did not get that, but what we did get is something that is new and maybe even stronger once we crunch the numbers. Really interesting to see how these commanders are going to test when they come into the game. But I want to know what you guys think about these commanders down below. While you're down there, drop a thumbs up on the video. It really does help out the channel a ton. It pushes this video into the algorithm so the Rise of Kingdoms players might see it. And while you're down there, consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the bell to be notified the next time I upload a Rise of Kingdoms video. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I will talk to you guys again soon. Peace.